But Jeremy, I have a question for you. How are you?
Ooh.
Because we're here. So
Yeah.
how are you?
So we were just sharing before I even answer that question. You have just asked me the hardest question that anyone asks. And it's a salutation. Correct?
Yeah. Yes. Oh, yeah.
And we've made it into this. What did you say? You said something. I'm not going to answer the question yet until we hit this thing head on. Why how are you is so difficult. And how am I? I'm pretty well, by the way. Thank you.
Good.
So why is how are you such a difficult, and listen, why is it so difficult in terms of a question? And I think I would ask, and why is it relevant to becoming unchained?
Well, when we ask how are you, most people just say, good, thanks, and keep going. So it is a salutation. However, when we see people, when we really pause and ask the question, how are you? It can be really challenging to people to have that question asked of them because it's ambiguous. What exactly do we mean by how are you?
So the tone,
how do we answer that?
The tone in which you ask it, I feel like is everything. Okay.
Yeah.
So there are 3 people in my life who ask me how are you in the way you do. Well, there's you.
Uh-huh.
And there's Jesse Paul, that is kind of my business partner.
Yeah.
And there's Jessica Marone, who's also kind of one of my business partners. You 3 humans ask a question, which is, how are you? But you ask like this, hey, how are you? And it is so probing because I don't want to answer that because I think I'm doing pretty well until the question is answered. And then I find out that based on our podcast topic, I'm probably not as free as I thought I was. Right?
That's a great segue.
Okay. Versus, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
How you doing is, hey, what's up? How you doing?
Yeah.
That's not confronting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, how are you? Is confronting.
Yes.
Okay, let's I'm going to ask a question that has no statistical what's the word? Probability or veracity or any proof to it. What percentage of people on this planet right now, if you ask them, how are you? Like straight up in the way that you ask it, what percentage could really genuinely from their heart say, wow, I am doing really well? What do you think that percentage is?
Oh, for sure, 11%.
Okay, you think it's that high? I would have said 10.
Wow, interesting.
I would have said 10.
Oh, okay.
But okay.
Okay. You're right. 10 is much, much lower than 11.
It is.
So
it's 10% lower than 11.
We should definitely say 10%.
But do you think 10%, let's just play with that number. Do you think 10% of the population feel free?
No.
And I want to define free today. By the way, guys, Unchained. I wrote something on a plane last week. Jen knows this. Unchained, a podcast, and you by the time someone hears this, they would have heard the intro, which is going to sound somewhere around this realm. Because by the way, guys, we haven't recorded at this moment the intro. But it would read something like, Unchained is a podcast for every human who wants to live a happier life. Becoming Unchained is about unraveling the emotional, relational, and physical chains that have held us captive for years, even decades, maybe forever. It's not an event. It's a process, right? So emotional, relational, physical chains. And the reason you asked me like an hour ago, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
I think we're still trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
We have some beautiful conversations, and I think it would be fun to tell people how you and I met. Because the folks that are running this studio met on Bumble.
Yeah.
By the way, Jen and I are not we're not in an intimate relationship.
No.
We have a very great friendship, but where did we meet, Jen?
We met on Hinge. Universe.
Hinge. Download Hinge right now, your local app provider.
And then delete it.
And
download
then
it,
delete
and
the
then
app.
delete it.
The app
So,
designed to be deleted.
yeah.
Is that what they say?
Mhm. Yes.
I actually saw I saw a reel
Yes.
from the CEO of
Yeah.
Hinge
Oh, really?
today, and it was actually pretty good.
Oh,
I like, it was kind of unexpected. And he talked about, because I want to talk about dating. I want to talk about health. I mean, we're going to talk about relationships.
yeah.
And so he talked about, and here's where I want to take this for just a second. And I know I'm kind of taking charge, but I'm not in charge. We're equal co-hosts on this thing. Is he talked about in dating that what people have done, and apps have done this to us for sure, is we have a very narrow framework for what we want. So women want all men to be how tall, Jen?
5'11"
Yeah.
to 6'1".
Yeah, definitely not 5'11". That'll
Maybe
never
5'10".
pass. I'm 5'11 and a half. They want men to be 6 feet tall, right? And we look at a photo and we make a judgment and we tell a story. And then it's like, I need you to be into hiking or biking or skiing or the thing or the other thing.
Play musical instruments.
Sing. Yeah. Basically,
Knit.
what we don't realize is that we create imprisonment for ourselves in that moment, right? Because we have decided that it should be a way, that the person that I am going to be with will be a certain way. How young were you married?
25.
So
For Utah standards,
yeah,
that was old.
you were what's called an
I
old
was
maid.
old. I was.
Yeah.
And I thought that at 25, I knew a lot and I totally had it figured out, you know?
Yeah, I didn't know
Versus
anything.
my friends who were 19, I thought, oh, I've got 6 years on that. Like, totally good. Except
wow.
now we met on a dating app. So
Yeah, so Jen and I
we know
met
how that turned out.
we met on Hinge.
And no, you are not my ex-husband.
No,
So,
I'm
Yeah.
not. I'm not. But this gets even more fun. Is I was telling one of my buddies, who was I telling? Was it Jesse or someone? That not only did I meet Jen before this beautiful friendship on Hinge, right, on a dating app, that this morning you were just about, but you couldn't line up schedules to run with another former girlfriend of mine.
this world is amazing.
Here's
so
why
small.
we're doing this podcast, by the way, because you asked the question. This dynamic, I'm bumping the microphone. This dynamic to be able to meet in that way and have a romantic partnership for a period was not long. It was not long.
A couple months.
I'm an acquired taste, and I'm a lot, right? People are like, who bailed on who? So I think it is very unchained, not unhinged, because we're talking about Hinge. Unhinged is something else. To be able to get on here and be like, no, we got an incredible friendship.
Yeah. Okay, but I want to jump in and talk about this.
Yeah, I want you to say whatever take this where you want to take it.
Because why are we here? I look at this and I think, I mean, I've thought about this all week, and we also need to go into that a little bit because I think that's important. But
why are we here on the planet?
Why are we here on
or in the podcast studio?
Let's lower the philosophy. So, like, why are we here in this studio having this conversation today? Why are we starting this podcast Unchained? 6 months later, what did we meet? 7 months ago, right? Started chatting. So not that long, but yet we really have evolved.
It feels like
in
it was
this friendship.
July 30th. Was it about then? Because I had done a bike race that day.
It was July 30th. Yeah.
Okay.
2023. So, but what's fascinating is we connected very quickly and very deeply, and it was beautiful. And we triggered the crap out of each other. And so it was confronting and challenging and hard for both of us because you've done all this healing. I've done all this healing. We've both done a ton of self-work, and we were in really good spaces until we met each other and realized maybe I'm not as healed as I thought I was.
Hey, who's triggered? I'm not triggered.
So maybe there are things that I can't see. Maybe it's one of those, we don't know what we don't know, right? And so how do we know until it's in front of us? And so we really came here to help each other become more awakened, eyes a little bit wider open.
Ooh.
And then also more unchained. And so that's why we're here, because in our process of coming together, developing and deepening our friendship, realizing in the process, you're amazing and we connect deeply. However, there is something that is not meant to be a romantic relationship.
Correct.
But that doesn't mean we can't have a beautiful friendship and continue to learn and grow together. And so it's been really fun, Jer, to learn from you because one, we're on the same page so much of the time.
Yep.
And you say things and, it's sexy to me. I'm like, oh, say that again. Like progression, we're evolving. I love this, right? We don't just die and then become amazing because we die. No, what we do here matters. And I'm excited to talk about that.
So, okay, this is kind of fun.
Yeah.
I love what you just shared, by the way. And we have triggered each other. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, and we still do a bit.
Yeah, which makes for such a fun friendship. So, okay, yeah, this is a pretty interesting dialogue because this is most definitely not a dating podcast. No. But there are some interesting dynamics that flow through that. And when a lot of us marry young. So I married very young. I was not quite 22 years old, right? And I talked about this actually on Cody Adent's podcast in the other room. I mean, 10, 20 feet away in the other studio, where I talked a little bit about, I didn't even know what my identity was, right? Mm-hmm. And so I didn't realize all the ways in which we talk about becoming unchained, that I wasn't free. And one of I was so young and I met my ex-wife, who's just a lovely human being. And it's like, hey, Mark Groves calls it wound mates. You bring your wounds and I'll bring mine and we'll be wound mates together. And you're pretty young and I'm pretty young. And neither of us has become clear at all about any of the screwed up dynamics that we brought from our household, because I grew up in a home where I perceived that everything was perfect, right? The Larkin family had it figured out. We were on the straight and narrow. Everything was just fine, right? And then I had my other friends, it was like glaring. It was so obvious in their household that shit was askew, to put it bluntly. Okay. Like things were askew. And so when we partner young, there are pros and cons to that. One of the pros, I think, is you are in a way naive and you can raise each other, which is the term I use on Cody's podcast, right? Like you raise each other, you build each other's identity. You
can, yes.
You can, right? The flip side of it was that I traipsed into the relationship with issues that I wasn't really clear about, right? Does this resonate with you?
Yeah, yes. Well, that's why I phrase that again. You can raise each other. And I see that as growing together, right? Figuring it out together. Or we can each bring our issues, and we don't necessarily have baggage, but we still do, because growing up is hard, right? Being on the planet is hard. Being human is hard. And so we don't have the tools. Now, in 2024, we have a lot more tools than we did when we were growing up in the 80s and 90s,
goodness.
Right? And so people, it's funny to hear my 10-year-olds that use words like codependency and anxiety, right? I had no idea what those words were, or mindfulness and meditation, didn't really exist.
No clue.
Which I do like to joke with my kids. Yeah, we were mindful all the time because guess what? Didn't have devices. We just stood there at the bus stop and waited for the bus.
So,
but we didn't have all these words. We didn't have tools. And so, yes, we get into relationships 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and we're not really raising each other. We're just growing up, but we're not growing together. And so how do we unchain ourselves?
Growing up, but not growing together. If I were Lewis Howes, every single time you drop a wisdom bomb, I'd say, huh. I want to do like a 90-second reel of literally like
a light bulb,
100 different angles of me saying, huh, and like different shirts. It's like the Lewis Howes. Okay. Growing up, But what did you say?
But not growing together.
But not growing together. So running parallel.
Yes. Well, and unfortunately, sometimes we start even diverging, right? So I've called it, maybe we start out close together and we think, okay, well, we're going to grow together, right? Like, and if we buy a house, then that's going to forge this
If
connection.
we have kids.
And if we have kids, if we have one kid, we're going to grow this connection. And then if we have more kids, so we just kind of keep piling the complexities of life on top of us, right? If we start a business, then we're going to grow together. However, if we don't have the tools, if we don't have the understanding, if we ultimately don't know ourselves, if we're not connected to ourselves, if we're not aligned with who we are, and we are not aware of our own shame, and I believe that we all have shame on some level,
goodness.
right? So if we're blind to that, then we are just operating. We're trying to function, but we've got 2 broken legs and 2 broken arms. And so at some point we collapse and we just can't keep going. And so, relationships will start to diverge and they become this massive chasm that's the width of the Grand Canyon. At least that's how it felt, and...
Okay, so there's so many things.
I know. You're taking notes, and I love this.
I could take some notes. I'm taking notes.
Tell me what's going through your head.
Yeah.
I want to.
Well, I'm having a couple of things go through my head. One of the things that's going through my head, we talked about growing up not together.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to reiterate, what is this podcast? It's about breaking the emotional, relational, and physical chains.
Yeah.
Okay. And I feel like emotional, relational, physical, every other category falls under those.
Yeah.
Right? If those are 3 kind of headings, everything falls underneath. So one of the thoughts that I'm having is, you and I are recording at least the time of this first podcast. I mean, our whole lives could change by the time we get several episodes into this thing, or 30 or 50, as 2 single humans.
Yeah.
Mid to late 40s. I'm late 40s. I am so fascinated about the perception that I used to have of single people that were our age. And that's kind of a fun conversation. Maybe I don't know. We could get into that, but
we've got so much to talk about.
Because I thought, well, if you're not married, you clearly couldn't keep things together. This is when I was really young.
Yeah.
Really young.
Yeah. Like a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yes.
Thank you.
I get it.
I was really young a year ago. I feel like in a lot of ways, right? One of the things I want to talk about today before we get out of here is I want to talk about the coaching conversation that I had yesterday, 2 days ago, that left me really disheveled, okay, with my business coach.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's something there that we need to kind of treat around how chained up we are and how bound and captive, and we don't realize it. And one of the great cues that I think is anger is when we know that we've been touched. But coming back, I'm pinning that. You and I are single human beings, and we have children, and mine are mostly raised. Raised is an interesting term, right? And yours are kind of early to mid-teens.
Yeah. Yep.
So there's a stack of books that probably isn't even visible in our frame, but we brought some books out thinking they were going to be a backdrop. But I've been thinking about, and this is where I'm going. I've been thinking about Falling Upward, Richard Rohr. So my good friend Ryan Seacrest, not Seacrest. That's a guy on television. Seacrest was originally the guy that referred me to that book, right? And Richard Rohr says that when we're young, we think that the big people have it figured out.
Yeah.
Okay, so before I even finish the statement, because it's a whole statement he makes.
Okay.
When you were young, did you think your parents had it figured out?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, same.
Yeah.
Same.
And now that I'm their age, I'm thinking, when am I going to get there that I will have it figured out?
Do you feel you're 45,
45,
right? You did turn 45. Do you feel like an immature 45-year-old in your own way?
Yes, in some ways, absolutely. Especially,
I feel like an immature 48-year-old.
Yeah. Well, especially as you mentioned, I'm single, right? So it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, now I don't have that attachment of, okay, I've got the family and, the spouse. And so we're all doing life together. And so I don't get to live that appearance of having it figured out. I now have to have that like, I'm single, right? And so I'm single, and now I have to figure out all the parts of life by myself. So
Yes.
I don't have it figured out. And that's really scary and vulnerable. And then there's also that feeling of other people looking at me and thinking, oh, this poor single mom. Like we just kind of, it feels like society just looks at you as, oh yeah, like suddenly it's a label, right? Oh, okay, well that person's divorced. And so there's a scarlet letter that we feel on some level. And I think we put those, I'm going to say chains. We put those chains on we take on those chains on ourselves, but then we also put them on other people in so many areas, right? So we're experiencing it as singles. We experience it in religion. We experience it in health. I mean, I do want to say, I really want to say this, but I work with people who have metabolic disease. I coach people into
you're a health coach,
becoming free from their habits and their lifestyle that is really moving them toward chronic illness ultimately, right? Diabetes, lots of cancers, even dementia, heart disease, if they don't change their course of action. And many of them are even pre-diabetic, et cetera. And go ahead. No.
Well, okay.
Tell me.
How imprisoned do people become with metabolic disease? And define metabolic disease. Define that for the public here.
So generally, we're talking a series of conditions: high blood pressure, high cholesterol, blood sugar. Often obesity is associated with it, but it's not a cause.
Is diabetes not considered a metabolic disease?
So it's part of a cluster. Fatty liver is part of it also. And so that's what we're talking here, right? But metabolic disease is really a precursor for other disease if we don't change the path. And so from the time I was in college, I decided I want to go into dietetics, and I don't want to make this about me because we've got lots and lots of podcasts.
I think you should for a minute.
We don't, we'll have lots and lots of podcasts for things to unfold. But when I was in college, I just had this aha. I was this 23-year-old. I had just come back from a mission. I was in Rome, Italy for a year and a half, and I was having this conversation with our massage therapist at my office, oddly enough. And I just said, I believe that we can be free from disease by what we put in our bodies, like the food we eat and the products that we use. And that's what I want to do. And so I started, in college, and I was planning on getting a master's in dietetics. And then I took physiology, and I, overburdened myself because I am an overachiever and a perfectionist. And I was like trying to do all the things, and I was working full time at a law firm and started to date my ex-husband. And so anyway, I got a D+ in physiology, and my very fixed mindset at the time was, oh, well, I guess I'm not really good at science, so I should probably change my major. One class, right? So that's a whole other thing that we've got all the topics, right?
Sure.
So anyhow, I changed my major, and then I took this course in health policy, and we had guest speaker after guest speaker come. My professor was fantastic. I grew really close to him. And so I asked the question of all of them, tell me about preventative medicine in healthcare. And they all said, and this was 20 years ago, and they all said, it doesn't exist. And so I thought, cool, that is what I want to do with my life, is focus on preventative healthcare. And it took me to Washington, D.C., and then it moved me into lobbying. But in my heart of hearts, I still thought, I want to help people understand how to become free from disease and also the negative thoughts that we have about our bodies. Our bodies are amazing. They're these beautiful gifts that we've been given, and we spend our whole lives hating them, right?
One of my favorite things that you utter is when you talk about how just amazing. Oh, isn't it amazing that our bodies allow us to do this?
Yes.
You like to do, there's a self-torture thing that you like to do, which will at a base level, it's called running.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Okay.
That is torturous.
I'm a big time mountain biker, which is funny because tomorrow, the day after this recording, I'm going to race is a loose term, my mountain bike for 5 hours.
You're going to be racing. It's
Yeah.
a race.
It's a race. But here's my question. But there's actually, it's not enough self torture. You don't just run, you like to do another kind of running. What do they call those runs?
Ultra running.
Ultra running.
Like
Yeah, this would be-
anything longer than a marathon, right?
Yeah. I've run a marathon. I felt like it was plenty.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I was there for you to witness you doing 100 miles.
Yeah.
So
Finish line of Wasatch 100.
yeah,
Thanks for being there.
I loved it. It's so funny because people, I'm kind of steering this a little bit, but
Yeah.
not intentionally. People ask, why would you do that? I actually have asked myself, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
When I started to just date only ultra runners, I don't know. That's not true, but there were 2 in a row. Okay. So, it's like, so what do you, it's like, what's your type? Ultra runners.
So I think, do you have to do 3 in order to realize
Yeah,
that maybe that's
I'm
like not your
taking-
type?
listen,
or
I'm
are you
taking-
done
yeah.
with 2?
I'm
Have you learned your lesson with 2?
I don't know. I'm taking
Okay.
applications for a 3rd ultra runner.
Okay.
So I'm kidding.
Noted. Okay.
But-
everyone hear that?
Yeah, please. But here's what I love is I used to ask that kind of question too.
Yeah.
And I feel like, and then you're going to tell me if I'm wrong. I feel like one of the reasons you do it is just to see
Yes.
what your body can
Yeah.
do.
Oh,
Like a marathon, 26.2 miles, like with lots of support every mile. Hey, well, what if I ran 30? What if I ran 50?
yes.
What was your progression? Just for fun. Because we're talking about metabolic disease.
Yeah.
Jen is a health coach professionally, by the way. And I just want to plug something in here is that somebody could actually engage with you, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they could message you
Yeah.
and potentially get into a coaching relationship with you,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
I'm
That's
just a realtor, or as one of the best Modern Family episodes is they said realtor, and she's like, it's realtor. Anyway, Gloria.
Is that Gloria?
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
Realtor. Yes.
No, I've done okay running a large real estate firm, but
But you also coach.
I do.
And
I
you're an
coach
amazing
real estate
coach too.
professionals.
Yes.
Thank you.
So
So
this is why we're here, because we're both coaches, right? Like we want to really understand the human experience,
yeah,
but how to embrace our potential and love and embrace the fact that we're human.
how many
Keep
times have
going.
you run 100 miles?
6.
And typical hours spent is how many? On
Like
average.
around 30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's straight hours. Straight hours. Okay. So you have this conversation with people who have metabolic disease,
Yeah.
right? And in some ways, I'd be like, well, you seem out of touch. You can run for 30 hours.
Yeah. I don't usually tell people, hey,
Of course you don't.
because we start where people are. So
But here's the flip side.
yeah.
Would I go to the gym and hire a bodybuilding coach who wasn't jacked?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm never going to do that. Right. I mean, look at the guy or gal and be like, yeah, you look like you actually know about bodybuilding. So my question then, because we could go way down a rabbit hole on
Yeah.
ultra running.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
that'll
when-
be another podcast.
When
That'll
you
be
talk
another
to
episode.
people who like, like in a day, what is the highest number of, you guys call them patients,
Yeah.
but clients
Or clients. Yeah.
that you speak with about metabolic disease that you would coach? What would be a big day?
12 patients.
That's a lot of
It is a
conversations.
lot. It is a lot.
Oh my
It's
goodness.
exhausting. Yes.
What would be the theme of imprisonment that you feel like you experience helping these? And by the way,
Yeah.
I am speaking, let's pretend Jen's not in the room. This woman cares about these human beings. And she's so sweet. She'll say, I got to tell you about my patient. She doesn't, I mean, I don't know them. It's all anonymous, but my patient, my client, you really care.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, it's beautiful. But what would be the generic theme of imprisonment that you witness?
It is, we get in our own way and we overcomplicate it. And I ultimately graduated in behavioral science and health. At some point, I thought, maybe I'll go into psychology because I love studying the brain and human behavior. A lot of that is because I'm trying to figure myself out, right? But the reality is we can't figure ourselves out. Freud said this without having a reflection in other people. And
Ooh.
so we we either mirror other people or other people show us parts of ourselves, right? They trigger us. We don't like them. Well, it's because there's something within us. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But I love the human condition and human behavior because I am a perfectionist and an oldest child.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think you're an Enneagram 3, but that's just my opinion.
And sure.
I want to talk about, by the way, and
Yeah.
as an aside, I'd really love to have Jen Hurst, join us and talk about the Enneagram.
That'd be amazing.
And her coaching clients.
Yes.
She saved my
and
life.
Discovering themselves, right? Yes. And she's done so much
okay,
for
but keep
you.
going. But you're an oldest child.
And you're an amazing Enneagram 8, right?
I am very much an 8.
Really
I'm
embraced
rocking
it and done such
you.
good things with it. So
you're an oldest child.
So yeah, but it's a lot of it is the perfectionism and just realizing that a perfectionist with ADHD, like, can you imagine how hard that would be? You're always trying to achieve here, and yet it feels like you're always falling short. And so I think you asked the question, well, what is chaining us most often? And it is...
Because you said people get in their own way.
Yeah. It's us. It's a fixed mindset. It's us, this should be a simple answer. And I think maybe there is a simple answer.
Mm-hmm.
And right now I can't think of a simple answer. So it really is that we have an expectation gap of where we should be and want to be and where we really are. And it's that lack of grace that holds us back. And that shame because of that gap that is keeping us low and from being able to achieve what we want to. And we just need somebody to see us, right?
Yes.
And like when we were talking about this podcast,
yes.
Like this to me, honestly, Jer, I do love people. I love people.
Yes.
And I love to ask the question, how are you?
Oh, I knew it.
Or what is the success that you've had from this week? That's a question I ask a lot because our biggest critic is ourselves. So we don't need other people coming in and telling us what we're doing wrong because we're already doing it to ourselves. We need people who are going to come in and show us what we're doing right and help us see that we are making progress, and also showing us how to unchain ourselves from the limitations that are usually in our own minds. Something as simple as, hey, you think that you can't exercise. Have you thought of waking up 20 minutes earlier and going for a walk 3 days a week?
Right.
And so often people say, oh, I hadn't thought about that, right? Because we're so busy in so many other areas of life, just trying to keep it all together, that we can't think through it. And in the meantime, we're thinking, I've got to get to the gym. I've got to get to the gym. My doctor said, you have to lose weight, you have to exercise. And where do I begin? I don't know. Like, it's so daunting. And so then we're just left thinking, I'm doing nothing. And so we just stay chained up. And then we hide, right? We stay invisible because we don't want to be seen because we're afraid if we're seen, someone's going to call us out for not exercising. Well, guess what? We can exercise. Let's just start in a different place.
This is so interesting because one thing that I didn't read earlier that I didn't even note here is I talked about in that intro that I had written.
Yeah. Which is so beautiful.
Thank you.
Like that was so inspired.
But it's the faulty belief systems that we have.
Uh-huh.
You said something. So I coach real estate professionals. And let me tell you the similarities here. It's getting in their own way.
Yeah.
1000%. I can't say this enough. People getting in their own way, tripping themselves up. And it's funny. So I had this coaching situation where I was being coached.
Yeah.
So I pay a professional to coach me in my business. And she came at me with, it wasn't just bazookas. I think there were definitely nuclear warheads and there were lasers. She might have even had sharks in there. A lot of stuff was pointed at me. I was like, wow, sharks too? Whoa.
Yeah.
This is 2 days ago. And
That was a hard day.
I had an adverse reaction to it in a way. And by 7 p.m., I was cursing and talking to my buddy Jesse that and it was in that moment that I knew. Like, oh. And by the way, she was 70% right.
Yeah.
But there were a couple of things that were said that were off.
Yeah.
And we didn't know each other. It was a first call.
Yeah.
It was 1 hour. It was supposed to be 30 minutes. And very distinctly, she challenged me. Okay. She challenged me on the way that I was leading my people.
Yeah.
And said, I don't think you're showing up enough for your people. And it's actually hard to talk about that on a podcast because this will be broadcast. And then, only difference is it won't be the first time my people heard this because I went into my Larkin Group team the next day and said, I think I failed you. And the reason I knew that is because I was so ticked off.
So that did ring. So after you processed it, that did ring true to you. You did
Fully.
feel that there was truth in that. Okay.
Yeah, fully.
Okay.
And here's what happened. Is I realized that when I got into the business, my focus was first to sell some homes. Then it was to be like the best. And there was a period where I was kind of definitely like one of the best, certainly in this county. The numbers would have proved that, right? And we built this big old brand and everybody kind of knows like, Jeremy Larkin, you're the guy on the radio. You're the guy on the video. I have friends come up to me, good friends, like men and women I really respect professionally. They're like, you're a marketing genius. Okay, thank you. But those are all kind things.
Yeah.
But what she said, I think I see what's happening. I tried to jump myself back into selling a bunch of real estate recently. I decided that would be good for my troops. I call them my troops often. Yeah. I decided that would be good for my bottom line. Yeah. Because the way my business works, I'm actually partnered, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, with a company called Place. So the Larkin Group is powered by Place. Well, how I earn money in real estate is I get paid if I personally sell a home, and then I get paid on a dividend of any profits that our Place organization has. The Larkin Group is Place. Place is the Larkin Group.
Yeah.
Well, if, say we don't have a profitable month, there's no dividends.
Yeah.
Well, if I didn't sell a home that month, it's tough for me to pay myself.
Yeah.
This is called business, right?
Yeah.
Well, I said, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do it. And I set this massive number, this goal last weekend.
Okay.
Now you're thinking, wait, how can you already have failed? Well, I was already kind of failing. So for the last 60 days, I said, I'm going to go do it. And it wasn't working. And I went on 3 appointments in a row. And the reason I'm going to share this story is this kind of story is painful to share. Realtors in Washington County would not believe that I went on met with 3 different sellers in a row, competitive listing situation. They were interviewing other agents. And me, the guy, Jeremy Larkin, the guy around town, I lost all 3 in a row. When I lost the first one, I was annoyed. When I lost the second one, I was kind of perturbed. When I lost the third one, I was actually scared. And I said, I've lost my edge. I went to Jesse and I said, dude, and I definitely said, dude, I've lost 3 appointments in a row, and I'm trying to lead a fleet of salespeople.
Yeah.
And when I get on the phone with Karen, she's such a Karen. Literally, she's Karen. She is amazing. Karen survived a brain tumor and has done incredible things. She said, you know what I see? You know what your problem is, dude? You used to be into being this hot shot and then into being number one. And she said, it's really evident that you don't care about that anymore, which is actually kind of nice to hear. It's just because I'm 48.
Yeah. You don't care about being number one.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And she said, you're not sure what your purpose is in coming into the office every day.
Wow.
So therefore, that is why you are distracted. And because the punchline of the call was I was distracted.
Wow.
And I said, I'm being pulled a million directions. And she said, are you being pulled? Do you catch her tone?
Yeah.
No, I'm allowing myself, Karen, to be pulled.
Yes.
Okay. This is a long story.
Yeah. That's good.
But there are some embarrassments and some shame points in this story. One is that I got beat out on 3 appointments in a row in the business that I'm supposed to be like one of the top dogs in the entire county. Number 2 is that I would have to like let anyone know that or tell my team that. Number 3 is I lost out on a chunk of income, a large chunk of income from that. The next item of business in my shame and embarrassment is having this coach go, whoosh, whoosh, kick me in the crotch and a few other places. And I was like, whoa, this hurts, and to realize finally that I was not stepping up and leading my people the way they needed to be led. And what she encouraged me to do, by the way, is go back into the trenches with them. Like, I thought being in the trenches was selling more real estate with them. She said, no, I literally want you to make phone calls with them. You're one of the best at what you do. You should sit in the same room with them. And like, you make a call, they make a call. You make a call, they make a call.
Wow.
And show them, right? And so what I realize is my business has been a prisoner chained to me. I am the dead weight. I am the anchor. Wow. I am the shackle. And the reason the company can't grow is because of my screwed up faulty beliefs.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, I'll play on social media,
Wow.
meaning like I'll post reels. Wait, I'll sell some real estate. Wait, I'll send some marketing letters out because I'm really great at that. Wait, I'll hop on the radio because we've done that for 12 years. Wait, I'll lead the agents and do some training. Well, you wake up at some point and you find out I'm doing a pretty shitty job at all of these things, right? Wow. And what I'm getting at is and I think we'll want to start to look at our time here today because guys, we're just, for our listeners out there, thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you.
The first Unchained episode ever.
Our 4 listeners at this point.
Yeah, we're up to 4.
That are turning to
your
4,000.
Yeah, your parents,
2,
my parents.
40,000.
Hey, my
what
parents
did I say?
Yeah.
I said 7 million.
7 million.
Right?
My parents had to actually ask me how podcasts worked. Okay, so just like chill out. All right.
Love it.
They're so beautiful.
We won't add them to
they're dying to see this.
Okay.
They're huge fans of Jen.
Oh, I love them.
Jeremy Larkin here,
Loved
of course, with
Dale
my
and Dixie.
close friend Jen Lambert, one of the most astonishing, amazing women I know.
Thanks, Jer.
Yeah, you're welcome. So since I'm doing a lot of radio shows, I'm going to direct us kind of into a close, I think, in timing. And I tell this story because it's like, what did you say was the theme of your health, your health coach? They all do what to themselves? They all get in their own
way.
I get in my own way.
Yeah.
And my question for everyone listening today, as we wrap up, and I'm going to give you the last word.
Okay.
How do you get in your way? If you got one thing from this episode today, if you pulled out a journal, hey, this is my place. This is a place journal. If you pulled out a journal and just got out a pen and wrote down this question, how do I get in my own way? If you ask that question and let that percolate for the next week, I think you'd be shocked at what you'd learn about yourself.
Yeah.
What do you think? I want your thoughts.
Okay. No, I like it. Thank you. I just on the heels of that, I would add just bringing it back to Unchained, the name of our podcast. And we really went through a lot of names to,
we did,
breaking free and becoming free and a whole slew of other names that I can't think of right now, but I really like Unchained. And so I would say, how are we getting in our own way? But what are those chains that are, or what is one chain, right? What is one area where we feel we are chained? And hopefully as we evolve in our podcast, I like to give, I like information. Now give me steps, right? Like tell me what to do next. And so I do like action because I'm a person that doesn't just want knowledge. I want knowledge that I can do something with. And so hopefully as we engage more, we will give people an opportunity to have tools, right? Have tools and have concepts that they can actually use and put into application. But I like the journal, something that, where are you getting in your own way and what is a chain that binds you? One topic that I'd like to talk about soon that I really did want to come back to is what does it mean if I am seen, and why do I not want to be seen? Because ultimately, those chains are a result of us trying to hide. So I'm putting that out there. That's
when we opened the podcast, you asked me a question. What was the question you asked me? It was the hardest question anyone human ever asked anyone.
Jeremy, how are you?
Right. It's a hard question.
Yeah.
It's a hard question. Being seen is really hard. And one of the ways I feel like we trip ourselves up is we want to be seen so desperately until we're actually seen.
Yeah.
And then we go, oh, actually, I was happier being invisible. You wanted to know the names?
Yes.
Unmatched, aligned, sovereign, unhinged, I put in as a joke. Breaking patterns, unraveling our humanity, embracing you, restoration, restoring you, mind vibe. That was you.
Was it?
Mind vibe definitely sounds like what's a nootropic?
I heard it somewhere, and I'm like, that's kind of.
It sounds like a psychedelic vitamin.
Yes.
Okay, mind vibe. Discovering alignment, becoming free, breaking free, the bonds that set you free. Which the bonds that make us free, which is an incredible book. No finish line, and when we landed, it was Unchained. Yeah. Unchained. Jen, how does, if someone wants to contact you because they want to know about health coaching that you do for people, or ultra running, or just say, man, you look great in that striped blouse.
Thank you.
Where did you get it? What are you wearing? How would they?
TJ Maxx.
TJ Maxx. Boom.
I'm a
if they want,
shopper.
I'm going to keep this. I feel like Instagram handles are the easiest way for people to ever reach us.
Yes.
What's an Instagram handle for them to
The
find
easiest one is Dandelion Runner.
Ooh,
And
I love it.
A whole other conversation as to why. Because it's about perspective.
Dandelion
Our
Runner.
perspective on dandelions.
I want you to reach Jen Lambert at Dandelion Runner. You can get me. And when I found this Instagram handle, I'm so happy. I felt like I had literally won the lottery.
Yeah.
Jeremy Leon Larkin, my full name.
Love it.
At Jeremy Leon Larkin on Instagram. And guys, if there's something in this episode, any episode that touches you, please tell us. Please give us a review on iTunes. Tell the world about it. Share this on whether it's iTunes or YouTube or wherever your preferred podcast distribution point. I think that's what I mentioned earlier this week. It's a distribution point. Okay. There you go. Over and out, guys.
Your term. Thanks, Jer. It's been fun. I'm excited.
And what's the question?
Episode 1.
How are you getting in your own way?
Yes.
Episode 1 in the books.
It's a great place. Okay. Let's do this.
Thank you.
7 million.